Well, hi, everybody. Dave Rolfe here. It is Business 101 class and is Thursday. Wow, May 7th. May 7th. Okay, I was getting a little ahead of myself. Um, Today I was going through some documents and I realized that I had a copy of the book I wrote in 1990 called Vested Interest, Making Network Marketing Work for You. And I thought this would be a good series that we could do over the next few weeks of kind of going over the book and what's in the book, and then deal with some of the issues that are going on today and how this still relates to them. So here we go. So here's the table of contents. We have the preface, which I'll go over, how to use the book, introduction, the rules of learning, and then we have the 10 chapters, treat it like a business. Why are you doing this? How does network marketing really work? How do you make money? The roadmap. It's all about communication, systems, procedures, techniques, and functions, your daily activity, success, and leadership, and how to make it work for you. And then there's a bunch of terms in the back that are important, and then some people that helped guide me in the beginning about this have some comments about it. So there we go. So I'm often asked why what I did to get to the top of network marketing, and for years I'd answer by working hard and taking advantage of my circumstances. Well, this is an accurate answer, but it isn't a complete answer. And over time, I've given the question more and more thought. After examining my success in the industry, I realized that it grew out of my mistakes and successes as an entrepreneur. The things I've done to build a network marketing organization that now pays me a handsome monthly income are the same things that I've done to build a number of other highly profitable businesses in other arenas. The same basic elements are at work in every successful business I've ever seen. Okay, so there's the beginning. Now, the model for success is universal. Many of the people who ask me how I've done this are frustrated. They see the potential of network marketing, they believe in the idea it represents, and they spend a lot of time, energy, emotion, and money trying to make it work. And too often they aren't succeeding because they don't know what to do or understand how to do it in a way that works for them. We're going to cover this in the rules of learning, which are coming up shortly. Their lack of experience and know-how combined with the general attitude of next. This translates to the idea that if something's not making it, move on to the next, creates a situation of sparse results or no results at all. There seems to be a lack of standard technology to guide everyone in a way that teaches the core principles of this business, and that's simple to understand and can be applied by those who follow. I wrote this book to give you what I believe to be the basic mechanics of networking. Think of it as a step-by-step handbook to make this business work for you and to keep it working the way it's supposed to. If you know what to do and you don't do it, then you're not going to be successful. But if you don't know um, what to do and you don't learn how to do it, that's a crime because you can learn. Now, I want to teach several kinds of reach several kinds of people with this book. And if you're taking a close look at network marketing before deciding whether to get involved, you'll find what you can realistically expect from a network marketing business and what you will need to do to be successful. If you're a new to network or you're just starting, you'll find what's probably been missing in your basic training, namely exactly what you need to know, understand, and do, so your results will fall in line with the vision you saw in the excitement you felt when you signed up. For the network marketing veteran, this book can do a number of things. It can be a refresher course in the basics. It might also be a new course of subjects no one's ever shown you. And it can be a valuable tool in training the people you bring into your business because your success depends on theirs. I call the ideas I'm presenting here the 10 things you need to understand but they're more like natural laws for network marketing. No one has to enforce them, they enforce themselves. I've been on both sides of these laws, so I know how great the payoff can be when you follow them and how expensive it can be when you break them. My network marketing business would pay me 5 or 6 times more if I hadn't violated one of these natural laws a few years ago. The 10 things you need to understand are what have made the greatest contribution to my success in network marketing, and I want to share them with you. The idea is to identify the basic concepts of workability versus the individual styles and techniques by which others became successful. If you understand the concepts and mechanics of this business, then you can develop your own way of making it work. Simply put, they work. They work for me, they've worked for scores of others, and they could work for you. Okay, how to use this book. In order to really understand what the book has to offer, follow these suggestions on how to use it. Make notes, read it at least 2 or 3 times, and follow the rules of learning. This is not a compilation of problems people have in network marketing. We'll mention problems in passing, and we'll pass them on our way to the solutions that can help you succeed in this business. As you come to understand the 10 things, you'll see solutions to many of the challenges that now frustrate you. These 10 things are not presented in any order of importance. They're all important, but you need to understand each of them because they work in conjunction with each other. As you go through the chapters, you'll see how they all fit together. I'm presenting the information in a universal format that's written in narrative forms so that you can understand the concept versus a specific company's plan. Please understand that if you feel from time to time that I'm talking specifically to you, it's possible, but highly unlikely. I don't want to offend anyone by saying you're doing it all wrong. Whether the problems are ineffectiveness that might be plaguing your network marketing effort, they're almost certainly due to trying to do the job without all the information you need. It's what you don't understand that affects you. There are as many ways to win in this business as there are individuals. The key question is not how did somebody get there? The key question is what did they do to get there? Your objective is to figure out how you're going to do what you're going to do or how you're going to get there. And this book aims to help you create the quickest, most stable, and most effective route to get where you want to go in an industry that was created with this purpose in mind. In an attempt to help those in my organization become more successful, I began to uncover subtle yet simple answers to what I call the challenges of networking and the major reason for this book. As part of my style and technique, I would give out my phone number to tens of thousands of distributors at our events with the message, if you need my help, give me a call. I gained a reputation for doing this, but it also gave me information about the views, problems, and challenges in general terms of the entire distributor force. In other words, the data I accumulated over the years allowed me to see some pretty common areas that seem to plague distributors. Here's what I found. 1, the inability to communicate the language. 2, a lack of know-how with regard to the application of systems, procedures, and techniques that were developed to build the business. Number 3, not understanding the concept of how this business works. Number 4, not knowing how to make money based on the plan of the company, typically called the compensation plan. Number 5, an inability to focus on day-to-day basics because of no real understanding of how to plan what to do. Number 6, confusion about how to get motivated. Number 7, no real idea of how they're going to get there. And number 8, a lack of product knowledge and application. The overall lack of understanding kept coming up over and over again. It was obvious to me that if I was going to be effective, I needed to come up with solutions and provide the know-how to apply them. This was the task I set out to accomplish starting in 1996, and it took me close to 4 years to get it all together. The most important part of the solution to these concerns is communication. I believe communication is the universal solvent. Every problem begins with a problem in communication. So it's only logical that the way and the only way to solve any problem or challenge is by communicating the right information in a way that's easy to understand. And that's what I want to do in this book. The following chapters are designed to deal with the objectives that you want to accomplish in a way that identifies the basic concept and idea first, with the view of understanding the workability of the idea or concept. Once this is done, then you can work on developing your style and how you will do it. Something I can't overemphasize is this. Although the information in each of these chapters is different and unique, I have concluded that it must all be understood and applied in some form or fashion if you expect to get the results that you want. As a caution, there are always exceptions to any circumstance. There doesn't seem to be any logical answer in these, but you need to look beyond the exceptions and work on the norms, the averages, and most importantly, work on how to make it work for you. You'll be far better off in the long run. Before we get into the meat and potatoes, I want to go into some of the rules that I have found to be helpful in basic understanding. And please make sure you go over this section. I think you will find it comes in very handy and gives you the ability to grasp the idea that follows. And always, if you ever need my help, please communicate. The rules of learning. Many years ago, I signed up to take a communication course that forever changed my life. I just moved to Vancouver, BC from Winnipeg, where I was born. And since I was working as a sales rep, I thought I knew how to communicate. But I quickly realized how poorly I did. The first course I took started out, and some of what I have now incorporated into the rules of learning and the rules to apply to become successful in business. When I understood the power of these rules, it made learning easier and working much easier and more profitable. The key here is not to be glib, that means superficial, in your attempt to use these principles. In other words, work on really understanding the ideas versus just assuming you know. Make sure you can apply them. Misapplying these rules will send a person in the wrong direction. As you go through this book, you'll see that you have to know these rules first, or you might miss the book's concept. These aren't difficult rules, but they do take a little time to get used to. And these are the rules you've most certainly never been taught before. Now, any business has its own language based on terms and words associated with the business, including terminology the business owners make up. Network marketing is no different from other businesses in this regard, and it might even be more outrageous. It's in its use of unusual, if not truly strange, words and terms. As time goes by, big words become smaller or are reduced to abbreviations and initials for faster communication. So over time, typical communication sounds much different than it did in the beginning. And you need to understand a business unique language so that you can communicate it. What I learned is this: you won't communicate what you don't understand. And communication is what networking is all about. Now, here are the 4 major areas in the learning arena. Each of them will give you a greater ability to understand whatever you're trying to learn and apply. The first rule is basic. What does the word or term we're using mean? In other words, the terms of your business. Have you ever noticed how you feel when you come across a word you don't understand? Hey, it's kind of like you go blank for a moment. You possibly lose interest. Whatever is being said is kind of foggy, isn't it? On an everyday basis, we use all kinds of words in our business that people don't understand in our conversations and our communication with them. Here's what happens. When you go by a word you don't understand clearly, the passage or statement immediately after can actually register in your mind as blank. In other words, there's nothing there. So the person says something to you, And they use, okay, so I'm going to use mag boys, and they don't understand what the term mag boys is. It's like a radio or telephone cutting out. You don't hear whatever comes next. And as a result, you can lose interest very quickly, or the point being made by the person that's presenting. It's the same whether you're listening or reading. Have you ever read a book and when you come to the bottom of the page, you wondered what you just read? This is the phenomenon of the misunderstood word or term at work. How about times when you're in a conversation or listening to a speaker and you find yourself yawning even though you're not tired? This is the misunderstood word again. Here's another complication. We all have a tendency to mentally fill in the blanks in order to make sense of what we're hearing or reading. And this is what they teach in school, by the way. They teach people don't look up the word, figure out what you think it means in terms of what the rest of the passage says. And so they're guessing at what it means, and then they come up with the wrong answer. This is why people are so ill-educated and the literacy rate's so low. We make assumptions about what something means. That's human nature. And so it's our very strong tendency to shy away from things we don't understand. The consequences can be enormous. So I'm going to pause here and just bring in when you're talking to a new person, they have no idea what you're talking about if you use the business language. You've got to take the time to make sure they understand what you're saying. Otherwise, they'll go to sleep on you. And if they go to sleep on you, they're not going to get fired up. They're not going to get interested. And guess what they're going to do? Nah, I'm sorry, I'm busy. No, I'm not interested. And they don't call you back. That's the end result of it. So let me share with you a real life example of how enormous. I'm currently a distributor with a company I joined in 1990 and have become extremely successful. We expanded into Europe in 96. And a well-known European businessman joined my organization. In his sixth or seventh month as a distributor, he was moving fast with several hundred people in his organization. In our company pay plan, and we'll cover that in chapter 4, there are what called volume requirements to qualify. So the qualification part. And these are minimum sales volume figures. And anyway, to make a long story short, he didn't understand the qualification part and missed qualifying and lost a check of $10,000. And just because he misunderstood a term in the compensation plan, because he didn't study the compensation plan, and he didn't learn what the qualification process was, so he not only couldn't talk about it, he couldn't understand it, and therefore lost the $10,000. I mean, he called me up and said, "What can I do?" And I said, "Nothing," and showed him the compensation, and we cleared up what he needed to do, and he never made that mistake again. So you can bet that he'll never make that mistake again, but you can also bet that his experience is repeated every month throughout network marketing industry. And this is the effect of a misunderstood word, learning meaning or concept in real human dollars and cents terms. We take it for granted what we think we understand when we're trying to learn something, and you go blank. Recognize that you've come across a word or term you don't understand. The solution is get the right definition or explanation. A good way to practice this is, let me get the next page. Give yourself a head start, most other people, to keep a dictionary close to you when you're reading a book, and so you can look up the words you don't understand. And really, it's the simple words. It's it's the, and those kind of basic words. People have never looked up the definition, and they're quite extensive, and they can cause problems. I was going to use this one. It's about crepuscle right now. What does that mean? It's about crepuscle right now. So crepuscle is another word to say it's the sun's going down and it's going into evening time, it's getting into dusk. So if I were to use that, if you were reading something and you read that, then people would fall asleep right there. I mean, that's how serious this is. And I'll lay one other thing. This was written in 1996. So, or 1998, I should say. So, in the last 27 years, I've learned a lot more. The major cause for a lack of productivity in anything is the misunderstood word. There is no other, it's that simple. So, something to pay attention to. Rule number two. Now, the second rule is even more powerful than the first. It also points up a mistake that the vast majority of all network marketers make. And let's start by defining two with very important words. One is significance, which is simply importance or meaning, and the other is substance, which answers what you're describing look like or feel like. So, for example, if we were studying tractors, and you had never seen a tractor before, you might have a hard time understanding what a tractor is if there was no picture. But if all of a sudden a tractor rolled down the street and you were able to touch it, see it, feel it, then that would create a better conceptual understanding of the concept of a tractor used in farming or other aspects of life. In an attempt to do good and get started, almost all networkers start talking about what they do and with their own language without much understanding of what they're talking about or without examples of the actual terms. And it sounds almost like a foreign language to the people that you're talking about, something like, now, in order to make the Kerflunkerator, let's go over what I want you to do. You need to go home and get all the parts you have there to start the process. Then what you need to do is come to the presentation that's put on by the experts. In the meantime, I want you to buy a manual and tapes that you can read and listen to. And by the way, when you get the Kerflunkerator set up, you'll be able to make it to Palladium, which will give you the freedom you desire. So the bottom line of that paragraph is, what did I say? And again, but that's what network marketers sound like when they're in their business, because the person that's listening has never heard what they've said before, and it's all like Greek. So the previous paragraph illustrates the point really well. Do you know what a Kerflunkerator is? No. And you know what Palladium is? No. But I made those words up. It sounds important, lots of significance, but what does it really mean? Don't bother looking up because I made them up. So the typical response to anything like this is, I'm not interested. Why are people not interested? Because in their minds, they can't grasp the sense of the thing you're talking about. So it's a defensive move to keep away from falling into something they don't understand and making a mistake. People say, I'm not interested. To understand rule, next page. Two, take a look at all the terms and products you're trying to use in your business. How about Pi Mag water? We use that term all the time, but the average person out there has no clue what Pi Mag water means because we don't take the time to talk about it. How about Kinkotherm? I mean, you take a look at all your products and the terms that are used in that, and then you'll get an understanding of what is actually happening when you communicate this to other people. What do they mean to someone who's never heard them before? They mean absolutely nothing. So the company I represent has some really interesting terms and products that you've never been in this part of the world until fairly recently. So if I use the company's terms for these products, then and talk to somebody who knows nothing about them, then that person can't associate the words or terms with his or her experience because they don't exist. And again, again, the basis of our business is communication, understanding, and people are coming to you with hopefully with a problem that you're trying to solve, and you throw out a bunch of stuff that they can't understand. And you wonder why you're not having or doing well. Let's talk about Mag Boys. And now, even today, some of you have never even heard the term Mag Boys because that term doesn't exist anymore. And if you aren't associated with this company and you don't know anything about its products right now, you're wondering, what are Mag Boys? And again, this is really out there. what we find in our industry is people are excited about getting involved in the business, and soon they're talking to an audience about Mag Boys, earnestly explaining, I used the Mag Boy on my elbow. And then the people are talking, they don't know what they're talking about. So obviously, if you had Mag Boys and you could demonstrate what was going on, etc., would be the idea. So if there is no substance or picture of a Magboy or an actual Magboy product to demonstrate, people just don't get it. Now, think about this with regard to all the terms used to build the business, levels, generations. They are unique to a particular company within the network marketing industry, which itself is not very well understood. Think of all the terms that are used and the lack of substance those terms have for people who aren't ready already in the business. The solution to this problem is very simple. When you're communicating, just convert your language about the products or the business in terms you know. The people you're talking about can understand. So, for example, in the sense of our structure, um, for those of us that are experienced and have an understanding of our structure, what are we trying to do? Well, we're trying to set up a network of distributors. I found in the beginning that because we have no physical, it's all individuals working from home, that was a hard concept for people to get. So the analogy became, well, it's kind of like you own a bunch of Starbucks, or you own a bunch of McDonald's restaurants, or you own a bunch of KB, cleaners, or whatever the case may be, is something that they have experience with in real life so that they can see in their mind what you're trying to say, and that becomes a very important thing to do. So learn to overcome our industry-wide tendency to vomit our excitement and enthusiasm over people who don't share our excitement because they don't know what we're talking about. Do this and you'll eliminate a lot of those not interested responses. Now, the third rule. This is very common and very commonly misunderstood, particularly in many training and educational settings. Our schools are overwrought with this one. Businesses are guilty of it. It's the unending source of frustration for employees and employers and employees. For that matter, it happens throughout life, and I'm talking about overwhelm. It's what happens when people are confronted with more than they can handle, and that includes information. So, in other words, and I'll just summarize this, overwhelm is you're moving too quickly, too fast. So it's hard for the person to grasp what you're getting in a conceptual understanding. So the again found this early on because I understood these rules that I would stop and check to make sure the person understood almost everything I said. And then I would go to the next step, and then I would go to the next step, and then I would go to the next step. Because when you're overwhelmed by a new business circumstance, the tendency is to get out of there, leave. And we don't want that because, and this is what happens with new distributors. They get involved, they get excited, you sign them up, and then all of a sudden they fall flat in their face because they get overwhelmed with everything they got to do because you've given them too much for them to do. And it's like this statement down here. It says, okay, welcome aboard. Now let's get your order together. 5,000, a good place to start. And you'll want to go get up to 100 names, put them on a list, go over that tonight. So you can start setting up appointments for three-way calls and ABCs with the new people and then get them signed up. Oh, there's also a personal development workshop coming up at the end on the 8th and the 9th, and you want to be there for sure, blah, 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 blah. So all of a sudden, this person's got all this stuff to do, and he doesn't know what to do about it. It can get quite overwhelmed. So look at this from the standpoint of an overwhelmed new distributor. If this person doesn't understand the language and has never done anything like this business before, he or she will be extremely overwhelmed, and that's what's happening. If you go too quickly, too fast, the tendency is to leave. Okay. So cut down the gradient and make sure that it works. Okay, let's go into rule number 4. The fourth rule learning applies to communication related to how we understand. It's the idea of comparable magnitude. Now, what do I mean by comparable magnitude? So, if I have a glass bottle in my hand and I'm trying to describe that to somebody else, I want to be able to describe it compared to a glass bottle. Now, if that person has never seen a glass bottle or a glass vase or whatever I'm trying to do, you want to have something to compare to. I kind of used that before if we were talking about the business and our structure. I used a comparable magnitude like McDonald's or Starbucks as structure. Now, in my years' experience in marketing, sales management, and running businesses, when I wanted to communicate an idea to someone else, I found that the best way was to compare what I was talking about to something they already understood. So again, I've talked about this a gazillion times that the first part of your communication with any new person is to find as much as you can about that person so you understand how to communicate with that person. What do they do? What do they like? What don't they like? Those kind of things, because you want to find out, is there a problem? And then you want to present your solution so they understand that they can then think with the, oh, wow, okay, so I got this problem, I can apply it. You can explain that to them. So let's say I'm talking to a group of people who've never heard about my company or its products, and I'm trying to get them to understand the potential of my opportunity. Let's also look at the people in the group, our baby boomers, and we're grown up in the 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s, and who are familiar with the big trends in society during those decades. Okay, so I want to understand the magnitude, the relative importance of this business opportunity. So I might compare it, or I would compare it to other products and industries that have gone from zero to being accepted and used by everyone. One example is the VCR. Well, I remember a time when there was no VCRs. I remember a time when there was no tapes that you could stick in a VCR and watch on your TV. And then all of a sudden they're everywhere. Same with televisions in the 50s, same with blue jeans, same with cell phones. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. So I would use that comparison to explain the potential of the opportunity. And the audience certainly would understand the point. Okay. Now, I've used it in network marketing, particularly when it comes time to everyone preconceived negative viewpoints. One of the most common is network marketing is just a pyramid as a pyramid scheme, which is said to be illegal. Now, this is the best one. So here's the picture of a corporate situation and a network marketing situation. They look the same. And now here's the key. And in the slam on network marketing is you at the top and other big gurus make all their money from all the people down below. Well, the truth of the matter is, so does the CEO of a major corporation. He makes all of his money down below. And if the people in under you don't do anything, then you don't make any money and they leave. And the same thing happens in corporate America. If people down below don't make anything, don't do anything, they leave as well. So what you really want to get your wits about this is to be able to deal with the idea of the benefits between us and corporate America. The structures are identical in appearance, and by showing someone the structures of network marketing in comparison to something they already know and accept, the person can see that there's nothing inherently bad about the structure in this industry. It's the same as the business that that make and sell just about everything that we buy and use. It's all about the division of labor and the ability to divide a lot of work and production amongst many people. And of course, we now know after many years in this industry that the key to making this work is what the individual does. And we know that not everybody is going to do what they need to do to be successful. And so again, what I would suggest you do on this part is in your own time, read it and make sure you don't have any misunderstood words. Use the words in the glossary clean it up because this is going to be an important aspect of moving forward. Okay, so what's the point? The right definitions of words and phrases increase your understanding and ability to communicate. See, you will not communicate what you don't understand. And a misunderstood word will give you something you don't understand, and therefore you won't communicate it. The more people can touch, feel, and sense what you're talking about, the more easily they can understand and use it. So, drawing pictures, having your presentation book, we're going to cover that in the rest of this book. Too much, too fast can stop understanding and participation. And communicating a language that's easily understood. So we've talked about this. I've got a ton of videos on YouTube, Dave Rolfe, about all of these subjects that you can refer to and get your wits around. Okay, let's move on to chapter one, I think is next. Chapter one, treat it like a business, getting organized. In all my experience, in talking to, I was invited to a seminar before I came to Florida. And I know this man very well. He set up a network marketing company in Italy. And when he first started his business, his financial plan was budgeting $500 a week. And now this is a number of years later, his financial plan is budgeting 5 million a week. So his business has done really well, to say the least. And he was in the energy business and basically became extremely successful. Anyway, the key to that was his organization skills. He was extremely well organized because, again, in this business, you've got lots of stuff that have to be done, lots of people that you've got to talk to, lots of people you have to follow up with. And if you're not organized and you don't have the right plan and the right direction, it's kind of like you hire somebody to come and clean your house and you don't tell them what you need cleaned. Or you don't tell them where you want cleaned or where you don't want them to go or how you want it done. If you don't give them any instructions, you're not going to get a very good job done. And the same thing applies here. So how do you treat your activity, like a business? And what do you need to know to treat your activity like a business? And what does a business need to know? And how do you know what you're doing is right? So the key that I got from this, and I got this from other areas as well, is that a business is a thing. It's not you. It's something you control, you direct, and you make work. It's kind of like a car. So you have a car and it sits there and it's in your driveway and it's not going to do anything on its own. You have to go out there, open the door, stick the key in it, and do some things, turn it on, and work the pedals, and away you go. So the same thing applies here with the business. And I found that the answers to these questions are the most important answers I've learned over the years as an entrepreneur. When I began working with my current network marketing company, I was dead broke, 8 months behind in my car payments, recently remarried and desperate for ideas and how to provide for our blended family. That was my situation. And I put my best suit I owned and made sure I looked as good as I could and walked out of the house with a smile on my face. Why? Because I was working to build a business. So I treated it like a business. Not one person I talked to had any idea of my personal circumstances, that they were absolutely bleak. The people I talked to about the new business showed me the respect due a serious business person. So it was kind of like, you go into a store and you get a professional person that helps you. You go to buy a car, you get a professional person that helps you. You're looking for health care, you get a professional. So again, you want to be as professional as possible because what you're offering somebody is basically a key to a door that could change their entire life for the rest of their life. And the people that I talked to listened to what I had said. They seriously evaluated the opportunity I was offering them. And enough of them joined me that 12 months later, I had gone from economic rock bottom to a six-figure annual income. Now, it's important to recognize what was able to do to make that success happen was based on the fact that I knew how to treat my brand new business like a business. And I've been on that path many times before. So experience. I knew the answers to the questions that began this chapter, and let's take a look at them more closely. So, what's the business? It's an activity that's engaged in the creation or production of goods or services that are exchanged for money in an effort to provide for those who are involved with the business. So, okay. So what's the business? It's that structure, that thing that's engaged in activity that's moving products in exchange for money, and that exchange is going to provide for your living and ability to do other things. So that's why you're doing this. That's what it is. If not, then you're going to be doing something else. Now, how do you treat your activity like a business? Well, you do this by paying attention to the activities that when you put together create the product and or service that is to be exchanged for money in a way that brings in more than the business spends. In other words, a profit. So the focus of your activity has got to be geared to making it work, understanding what needs to be done. We'll get into that. What do you need to know to treat your activity like a business? Well, this first could be endless, but the key point here is the ingredients and how you mix them together so that you can get what you want. And again, a business is made up of all kinds of activities. Those are the ingredients. And ours are really simple, and they're all laid out in we'll cover those chapter by chapter. And how do you know what you're doing is working? Well, you got to keep track of your activities. So from day one, I tracked everything I did, people I talked to, calls I made, income, number of people I sponsored, rank, everything, because I wanted to understand what what I could cause and what result I could create and what was working and what was not working. And those are using statistics, and we'll talk about that in its own chapter. Now, the questions and answers came about because of the need to survive and the desire to have more, but importantly, because of experience. Okay. So this next part I've done several times. It's called the administrative scale. And number one is goal and objective. Number two is, your purpose. And basically, the definition of purpose is a lesser goal. So my goal was to be successful. I wanted to make $8,000. Why did I want to make the $8,000? Because that paid for the rent, it paid for my car, put food on the table. It was really quite basic. It wasn't anything esoteric. And so the drive was, and the purpose was to get to where I wanted to get to. I far exceeded that. And over the years, my purpose changed, and it's even changed today. Is different than when I first started. Number three, commitment rules. Now, this becomes the policy. And this has been tweaked since I wrote this in 1998, 99 to be what works versus what doesn't work. But you have to understand what doesn't work so you can focus on what does work. And then that could be using Dave Rolfe stuff, could be using Michael DiMuccio stuff, could be using Leo LeMay stuff. It could be using anybody's stuff. But as long as it works and you apply it and make it work, then that's the policy that you're going to apply. But if it doesn't work, then you got to get rid of it. Because again, what you're not trying to do something that doesn't work. You're trying to do something that does work. And then the plan, well, again, based on our compensation plan, when you figure out number one, your goal, that's going to tell you where you need to build to. And, it's usually the upper ranks of platinum diamond or royal diamond. So the business plan would be that. And then now the production plan would be the active daily program. What are you going to do to get there? And that boils down to, the people you got to talk to, the phone calls you got to make, all of that sort of stuff, the people you got to sponsor and how you're going to build, etc. Now, number six, orders and projects. So Here, you got to give yourself the order to start and do things, and you sometimes have projects. So, a project that you're going to have to do is read this book. That would be a project, to help you understand all the specifics. Number seven, your ideal scene, the big picture. What does it look like? Now, when I first started, I created my ideal scene was 120 grand. So I drew a picture of what that looked like in terms of structure, people, volume. So I had a realistic understanding of what I had to do. So let's do an analogy here. You've got a backyard project and you want to put in your own swimming pool. And you've got to dig the hole to put, you're going to buy one of those plastic swimming pool kits. Because I did this. And I had to dig the hole to put in the plastic thing, and then I had to build the deck around it, et cetera, et cetera. So again, from the standpoint of the ideal scene, I had to see what it looked like at the end and understand what I had to do so that all the way along the line, I could see what I needed to do, what was left to do. In other words, okay, so you're going to that, let's say the level of diamond, you want to make $10,000 a month or Royal Diamond, whatever. And you start building the business, you sponsor a couple of people and you make yourself 1,500 bucks. Great. You made yourself $1,500, but that's not the goal. The goal is 10,000. So what's left to do to get there becomes the focus. And that's why you have the ideal scene or the big picture. And then again, number eight is the statistics. You keep track of the statistics so you see how well you're doing, what's working, what's not. And then nine is what are you producing? What's the valuable final product that you're creating? Now, we've come to understand that we have two. One's more important than the other, but there are two valuable final products that create the exchange value. One is a customer, and the other is a distributor that's making it work. So, and again, when you look at that, so you recruit somebody, so you've recruited a distributor, doesn't mean that there's a valuable exchange happening yet. That distributor's got to be productive. So they have to be educated. They got to know what to do. Somebody's got to help them. Now you help them become successful. Now you've created a valuable product and you're going to get an exchange for that product. Just like if you have a customer that buys a product and then goes on auto ship, you've created a valuable product that you're going to get an ongoing exchange with. So these are very important. All right. Um, when I started with this company, I needed, okay, so you got that story, blah, blah, blah. What's the challenge, the concept? Okay. So finding all the information. Now let's go over that because this is important. So I needed the 8,000 a month to live, and this was my budget. How are we doing for time here? Okay, we got a few minutes left and we're almost done. So I tackled the company's compensation plan in order to understand the relationship of a productive activity to income. And I wanted the prize, so I had to figure out the next question that came up was I had to focus in on the company's products and understand the value and the benefits because I needed to communicate that to customers. And after the challenge was determining what was the ideal business model, what it looked like, so I drew that picture. And the concept gave me the ability to show what productive activities created what results. So the first one, and again, let's go into that. I created the analogy, this was like a factory. And the first part of the factory was prospecting. And that was in building number one. So in all businesses, what comes in the front door are raw materials. And in our business, people are the raw materials. So again, I had to learn the hard way. You're going to have to learn the hard way too. Not everybody that takes a look at what you got is going to jump up for joy and say, I want to do this. So the bottom line is you've got to do something that's going to get them to take a look and take and move from building to building to building. So in prospecting, I found that the first thing to do was to create interest. And interest was based on benefits. So I'd ask the question and I'd find people that were in need of making money, and then that was the benefit they wanted to hear. So I said, I think I got something where you could make a ton of money, and that created the interest. Then the next step, I had to validate the benefits. Well, in today's world, we have to validate the benefits by showing them how to build a business. And that was followed by education and knowledge, and then business building itself. So in this, you'll see the various factory buildings, validate knowledge, and then daily business battle plan, and then to the end about economics, and then what's the point? You need some kind of structure for yourself. You need to get organized. You need to understand the ingredients that make it work. And if you spend more than you make, you're going to go broke. And treating it like a business will give you the information that will help you win and get what you want. Okay, so I'm going to stop sharing this. All right. So again, um, what I suggest that you do is read that book up to the end of chapter one. Make sure you understand everything and start putting together the pieces, because next week we'll go into the next chapter, and then we'll do that successively over the coming weeks until we finish the book. Before we end off, I'm going to stop the recording, and thanks for being on tonight. We'll see you next week.